Hi, everyone, and welcome to How to Apply the Foreign Key based on database design. Okay, at this point, you've been introduced to the concept of a parent-child relationship. You've been introduced to the concept of a foreign key, and you've been shown how to apply the foreign key based upon a small example. It's my expectation that at this point in time, you're still pretty confused about what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going about accomplishing it. And that's fine. Once again, I really recommend you listen to all the videos and make sure before you ever dive into any of the assignments. And also before you ever start asking a ton of questions to your instructor of, I don't understand this. This is a process, and I'm trying to convey this process uh, in baby steps, if you will. So kind of hang in there. I hope at the end you'll understand exactly what it is we're trying to do, and you can actually apply it yourself. So with that, to continue our conversation, we're going to talk about how to take your design and how to apply the foreign key physically into our physical database to form those relationships that we have defined in our design. So in doing so, the objectives of this video is to show you how to apply the foreign key for a one-to-many relationship and how to apply the foreign key for a many-to-many relationship. Whoops. Okay, so even though we talked about this in the previous video, it's worth repeating to make sure you have it down. For a one-to-many relationship that you would have defined in your design, so from our example, the T instructor has a one-to-many relationship to T courses. The rule that applies there is this. Based on the parent table and the one-to-many relationship to the child table, you would simply put the foreign key on every instance row that is related to the primary key of the parent table. So for example, one more time. In this case, we have a one-to-many relationship to T courses, correct? So based upon that rule, we would put the foreign key that refers back to the primary key of the parent table. Since we have a one-to-many relationship, wherever we say the many at, okay, that's the child table, and thus T instructors is the parent table. One more time. So wherever we say one-to-many, so for every instructor that can have many courses, wherever we say the word many would be the child table, and the instructor then would be the parent table. Okay? So based on the rule, you put the foreign key in the child table that refers back to the parent table. And then when you see this, basically what we're saying here is that Bob has taught or is teaching IT 111 and IT 101. And we know this because Bob has two rows in the T courses table that points back to his primary key. All right? Once again, the T courses will also have its primary key. As we are teaching you, every table you create should have its own unique primary key. So the primary key of T courses in this situation really doesn't mean too much other than that primary key is representing all the columns within that particular row. We may use that later on, who's to say? But right now, what we're saying is this foreign key that we introduced and added to our columns of our T courses is pointing back to the T instructor. And once again, as I told you before, a foreign key must have the same data types. And in this case, we'll have the exact same number that both of them, that's the primary key, I should say. So if the foreign key ID 1 would have the primary key 1, and that says that Bob taught this course or is teaching this course. Same thing for this particular row. The beauty of this is that we can add multiple rows. Let me go back, sorry. We can add multiple rows, hundreds of rows that represents Bob teaching that course. I've been at Cincinnati State long enough where I have taught hundreds of courses. So I would actually have multiple rows all pointing back to my name in the instructor table represented by the primary key. Does that make sense? I hope that does. If not, kind of go back and re-listen to my conversation on this. All right. Okay. Finally, as you see here, Rose, another instructor, she's teaching IT 102, and that's represented by her foreign key 2, which is representative of her primary key back here. Okay. I think I repeated that over and over now. I hope that's what you need to do. So what we're going to do when we get into SQL Server, basically what we're going to do, we're going to the T course table. We're going to add a primary key column. That's all we're going to do. That's basically going to point back to the primary key that we've already established in the T instructors. Not too hard, correct? I'll show you how to do that in a subsequent video, but for the most part, that's all we're doing here. Okay, that's all well and good. That's one to many. We got it now, right? If you recall, in our design, we have three options: one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. Okay, one-to-one, for the most part, we don't break apart. We don't break those entities apart. We could in our design, but for the most part, they're all going to be within the same table. However, one-to-many, we break them apart. We break our entities apart, and we form that relationship. And then I just showed you how to form it physically in the database. Now what we're doing is we have a many-to-many relationship. Things get a little bit more interesting there. Here's why. Because if you recall, a student can take many courses and a course can have many students. Well, now we have many on both sides. And based upon the rule I just told you, right, the many is where the foreign key resides. So how are we going to do this? Okay. If we try to do it like we just did with instructors, we're going to have some limitations here. So if we actually look at this example where we say for every student they can take multiple courses, Pete, in his representation, being represented by primary key 1, is being shown to take IT 111 and IT 101. Cindy has taken IT 102. Okay, I don't see a problem yet, do you? Everything looks pretty good there. And so I can add multiple rows to T courses that basically represents everything that Pete and Cindy has taken. All I need to do is point to it based upon the primary key. Here's where the problem comes in at. Going the other way back, or going back, I should say, because I want to be able to represent all the students that have taken a course. How do I do that? Okay, I keep hitting the wrong side here. Sorry. If I try to sit back and say if also every course has many students, course becomes the parent and the students become the child. Based upon that rule, I would add the foreign key back into this table, representative of the primary key in the T courses table. Okay, not that big a deal, I guess. But Pete also took IT 101. What do I do? Do I add another foreign key here? Do I add multiple columns? You're probably saying, I don't know, Bob, you tell me. The answer is no, because how many foreign key columns would I actually add? I mean, Pete could take anywhere from 1 to 1,000 classes if he wanted to, right? And if that's the case, this table starts getting ridiculous looking. So, and it's not scalable, meaning we have to update it every time Pete decides to take another course. We don't want to do that. That would not be good database design. So, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we allow for both the students to have many courses and courses to have many students. We got to come up with a fix for that. So how in the world do we do this? Well, it's not that hard. As a matter of fact, there's a hard, fast rule that I want to teach you that I want you to remember. And a simple rule to remember is based on your design. So if you have a many-to-many relationship, in order to allow both entities to have many instances in each table, you must create a new table. Let me read the second sentence. So when two entities have a many-many relationship, you immediately know there will be 3 tables in total to form that relationship. Does that make sense? So when you look at your design, okay, and you establish there's a many-to-many relationship, like many of you have done in your previous assignments, you immediately know that to represent that physically within the database, you must introduce a third table. That's the rule. Pretty easy, right? It should be. Okay, but now your question should be, well, what's this mysterious third table you're speaking of, Bob? Well, I call it a main-to-main table, okay? It's going to allow for this main-to-many relationship that we're looking at physically. Yes, if you look at this particular screen, things can get a little confusing, but Let's take it one step at a time. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to establish a new table that takes on the names of both of the parent tables, in this case, students and courses. So we're going to create a brand new table called T Student Courses. So from our database design, if we have a many-many relationship between two entities, this third table is going to be a combination of those two names. Does that make sense? We're going to give it its own primary key because, as we've been teaching you, every table has its own unique primary key, and you see that here, okay? And then what we're going to do is this becomes the child to this parent, and this becomes the child to this parent, okay? And with that, the foreign keys reside in this table from both parents. So we have a student foreign key and a course foreign key. Now, what is that telling us? Well, let's kind of look at this. So in this case, Pete has taken two courses, right? He's taking FKID1, which is student 1, and he has also taken one here. So he's taken two courses that refer back to Pete taking this course. Does that make sense? Well, what course is he taking? Well, the course he's taking is this, IT 111 and IT 101. Cindy has taken, here's her, I'm sorry, let me slow down. Cindy, representing by this student foreign key, 2, right there and right there, she's taken two courses also. She has taken course 1 and course 3. So she's taken IT 111 and 102. So from this side, we see this all works pretty nicely. One-to-many relationship. Now, if I want to know all the students who's taken these courses, all I need to do is point to the primary key 1 here and go find the foreign key. So in this case, we're represented by the foreign key here for the course, and we see that Pete took this course, and we also see that Cindy took this course. And if you keep looking at this, we see that in this case, 101, Pete has taken that course. And in 102, Cindy is in that course. So, wow, we got some things going on here. So to actually make this all work, we got to introduce a third table that bridges all this together. I call this the many-to-many table. For the most part, this table is going to have nothing in it but keys. I say for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll add additional columns that's unique to that particular instance. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but trust me, you'll experience them throughout this course. And you'll just recognize that the columns need to be on that many-to-many table also. Does that make sense at all? So, for a many-to-many relationships, you should immediately know when you see that on your design, I need to introduce a third table. The third table is going to be a combination of both parents' names. And with that, you're going to put the foreign key from one parent and the foreign key of another parent in that table. And then every time you add that to your database, it's going to represent what student and what course they've taken. And this allows us complete flexibility to physically build a many-to-many relationship within our database. Okay? So let's go back to these rules again. For one-to-many, if your design, you have a one-to-many relationship. One side is the parent table, the many side is the child table. The foreign key goes in the child table representing each instance of the many relationship of the parent key in your parent table. Okay? For many to many, if in your design you have a many to many relationship, you need to create a new table with the name of both parent tables. The parent tables will be both of the tables that have many per the design. Okay? And the many-to-many table will become the child table for both. The foreign key goes in the child table representing each instance of the many relationship of the primary key in the parent table. Let's just look at these rules one more time. For the most part, with many-many relationship, you create a third table. Okay, that third table becomes the child table for both of the parents. and the foreign keys reside in that child table. That's what this is saying. All right, woo. I think the best thing to do now is go to the next video and learn how to apply all this, okay? And in doing so, hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. Once again, this is a process. You're new to it. I'm not expecting miracles at this point in time. Try to understand, play around with it, and keep an open mind. And sooner or later, you'll see exactly what it is we're trying to accomplish. Most of the time, people start completely understanding what we're doing once we start getting the data out. And again, in this week, we're going to do that a little bit by introducing SQL joins. And then when you'll see how we join this together, you'll see the reasons we actually created these relationships physically like we did.